Hi class, welcome to the first video lecture on Hans Jonas, particularly his book entitled The Imperative of Responsibility in Search of an Ethics for the Technological Age. So this is the first section um, of many um, because we will be tackling primary sources themselves. We're not gonna study textbooks alone. We will read um, in particular Hans Jonas and his book and Kant's critique of practical reason, or perhaps we can replace that with the groundwork for a metaphysics of morals. Um, Before midterms, we were given an overview of the major ethical frameworks, and I hope you have mastered it already. By now, we will use what you learned beforehand to tackle this book. So we begin with the preface. I am presenting the book itself with some highlights to help you, to guide you in reading the book. So let me go over, but I want you to read the book on your own afterwards. Okay. So he says, um, modern technology informed by an ever deeper penetration of nature propelled by the forces of market and politics has enhanced human power beyond anything known or ever dreamed of before. So um, here we see him setting the stage for a reflection on the ethical demands imposed by the unprecedented growth of modern technology. As you can see, the key theme that Jonas, I don't know how to pronounce his name, I think it's Jonas. The key theme that Jonas grapples with is the magnitude of power that humans now possess. He describes this power as a power that extends not only over quote, matter, but also over life on earth and over man himself, which he says, as you can see, continues to grow, quote, at an accelerating pace, end quote. So it's in a sense, it's dramatic in its speed, right? The progress of technology is um, very fast. This power, Jonas notes, has resulted in immense material advancements, particularly in the industrialized West, where the standards of living have reached quote of uh, heights equally unknown in the history of mankind. Okay, end quote. However, Jonas warns that this technological prowess, far from being an unmitigated triumph, brings with it novel and daunting challenges. Um, he speaks about the ravages of two world wars, right? World War One, World War Two themselves. He says, "quote children of that overbrimming power." Okay, so it's not as bright that it seems. Okay, you cannot be overly optimistic about this because there are skeletons hidden in the closet. Jonas draws attention to the paradox of modernity. While technology has undeniably improved human well being, it also poses existential threats. He acknowledges that the quote, ravages of the two world wars end quote, could not halt the march of technological advancement, suggesting that even these catastrophic events were but minor setbacks in the grand trajectory of human progress. Right? We underwent two world wars, but after that, we still progressed technologically. However, Jonas is quick to remind us that the threats posed by modern technology are not limited to quote the insanity of a sudden suicidal atomic holocaust end quote. Instead, the more insidious danger lies in the quote slow, long-term, cumulative quote end quote impact of the peaceful and constructive use of technological power, a process in which humanity is quote captive beneficiaries end quote through rising consumption and population growth. Okay, so I understand it's a bit complicated. Let's try to simplify this. It's essential to understand that for him, Jonas is not merely concerned with the direct effects of technology, but he's also concerned with the broader, more subtle consequences of its unchecked application. He speaks of thresholds, okay? And quote, points of no return, diba? Mamanay threshold, points of no return, where processes initiated by human beings may spiral out of control and lead to disaster. In short, he warns us that this speed by which technology progresses might bring to us doom because we do not understand the process, right? It's too fast for the human mind to handle. These processes, he argues, could overtax nature and humanity alike. So we have environmental concerns here as well, right? Setting off a chain reaction that we may not be able to stop, he says. This diagnosis, Jonas explains, forms the foundation of his entire book, okay, and even his work in his entire life. The major thesis of Jonas is that the very nature of human action has changed, okay, with the quote magnitude and novelty end quote of our technological achievements. Humanity now faces moral questions that previously uh, uh, that previous ethical frameworks designed for direct quote dealings of man with his fellow men end quote are ill-equipped to handle. In short, the ethical frameworks that we talked about last time, utilitarianism, deontology, right, the virtue ethics, even the justice theories, um, perhaps they're no longer enough, right? Because we are facing a whole new type of world. We are in a technological age where new questions have to be asked, and old ethical frameworks can no longer suffice. Okay, because the world has become more complex than before. Traditional ethics, which were localized in time and space, are inadequate for dealing with the global and long-term consequences of technological power. Therefore, Jonas calls for quote a new reflection on ethical principles end quote to cope with the unique issues posed by the technological age. Right. I think he makes that clear in the title. Right. If you can recall, at the heart of the ethics of Jonas is the quote concept of responsibility. End quote. Okay? Responsibility is the key word for Hans Jonas. He insists that responsibility, um, which he defines as the correlate of power. In short, what do you mean by correlate? In short, that if you have power, automatically you become responsible in wielding that power in a proper way. Okay, he insists that responsibility, which he defines as the correlate of power, must expand to match the unprecedented scope of human technological action. This responsibility, Jonas argues, must not only apply to the quote private and the public sphere, right? But must also include the future of humanity itself. This line is particularly the reason why I chose this book for the primary text. Why? It's because it's very relevant in the discussions today about sustainability and the sustainable development goals and so on. So Jonas is one of the foundational philosophers who have tackled that. Okay, he talks about this the future of humanity itself, right? As he states, man's fate. He's speaking not just about the concerns of the national, local level. He's talking about man's fate, right? The fate of humanity itself. Man's fate now depends on our ability to wield this responsibility with care and foresight. Okay, so in short, the power that has been given unto us because of technology wields wields us with a certain correlate level of responsibility, right? That's what he said. Power brings responsibility. Power brings with it responsibility, and the height of power that technology gives us is also matched by a higher height of responsibility, such that if we are not careful, then the long term effects are more devastating. Okay. This is where Jonas introduces the idea of quote lengthened foresight end quote, a scientific futurology that helps to predict the consequences of our actions. So, in short, we need to look into the future and not just at the present. Okay, we need to look at the fate of the next generation, not just of the today. He acknowledges, however, that such predictions will never be fully accurate. Okay, these predictions, which he calls futurology, you know, futurology, study of the future. These predictions, he says, will never be fully accurate, given the complexity and unpredictability of technological outcomes. Jonas proposes a heuristics of fear. Okay, a heuristics of fear as a guiding principle for our ethical decisions. He argues that since our predictive knowledge is always incomplete, diba? That's what he said, our futurology is always incomplete, we should prioritize, quote, the prophecy of doom, end quote, over the prophecy of bliss, end quote. In short, in light of the risks that are associated with the power that we are holding, what we must do is we must be careful. In short, we must use a hermeneutic of suspicion. In short, we must be careful because what should precede every action is the analysis of the potential harmful consequences that could arise out of it. So, in short, we should look more into the doom than on the bliss. That's what heuristics of fear means. In other words, we should be more concerned with with preventing disaster than with pursuing utopian visions. This pragmatic rule reflects Jonas's deep concern for the fragility of the natural world and the potential for irreversible harm caused by human intervention. In point 4, so we are now in this part. In point 4, we talk about 1, 2, and 3. A key aspect of Jonas's ethical framework is his belief that we must preserve that what we must preserve is rooted in our, quote, image of man, end quote. This image, Jonas explains, was traditionally shaped by religion, right? Because the idea of an image of man comes from Genesis, for example, right? Which is a text of Christianity, but also of Judaism before that. So he says the idea of the image of man was first articulated by religion. But he says in the secular age, it must now be grounded in a, quote, doctrine of general being, end quote. Or what's the doctrine of general being? That's metaphysics, right? This means that our ethics must be based on a deeper understanding of human existence and its place in the broader context of life on Earth. Jonas argues that without such a metaphysical foundation, our attempts to formulate ethical imperatives will lack coherence and depth. Therefore, he proposes a speculative approach to ethics, one that dares to challenge the prevailing analytical theories that dismiss such metaphysical undertakings. In short, he wants us to return back to metaphysics. As you can recall, in the postmodern period, philosophers have become allergic to metaphysics. But we have here Jonas, who wrote a book about the technological age, who puts back and he says, no, we cannot drive away metaphysics. It's our only chance to ground a metaphysics for the technological age. He says, but there we must, right? But there we must. In short, we must dare to create a metaphysics for today because on it rests the fate of humanity. Finally, in point 5, Jonas addresses the issue of progress. He critiques the contemporary utopianism that aligns with Marxist thought, which seeks to maximize technological advancement without regard for its impact on nature and humanity. So, as you can recall, in Marxism, there's this goal of utopia, right? That utopia, in short, in the future, when it is hoped that man will live with abundance, right? Free from work, right? Free from labor, and we just enjoy life. That ideal is dangerous for Hans Jonas. Okay. Jonas argues that this approach is inherently dangerous as it risks, quote, overstraining nature. Kaya pugsun ba? Overstraining nature and leading to catastrophe. Instead, he advocates for a more modest goal, which is the preservation of human survival and dignity. This, Jonas believes, should be the ultimate aim of technological progress, not the realization of utopian dreams, but the safeguarding of humanity from the excesses of its own power. Okay. Jonas acknowledges that the challenges that humanity faces today in the technological age are immense, right? But, quote, dare it we must, end quote, if we are to navigate the uncharted territory of the technological age. All right. Jonas notes that his book emerged from years of work and reflection. Okay. It took time to create this book, Pilanica page 262. So he said it took time to really write this book. He admits that for the reader, as for himself, things are not always made easy in the book, end quote. In short, siya mismo, niangkon, nga lisod sabto niyang libro. Right? He said, things are not always made easy in this book for the reader. This acknowledgement reflects the complexity of the subject matter, okay, that he is trying to address, which is the intersection of technology, ethics, and responsibility. For Jonas, the process of writing the book was long and arduous, beginning with a 1959 lecture titled The Practical Uses of Theory. This lecture was the first instance where he, quote, offered his first account of what he perceived to be the new relationship of theory and practice in our age, end quote. Here, Jonas emphasizes that theory, which is abstract thought, right, must now be applied to pressing practical issues. In short, there must be a shift from theory to praxis. The technological advancements of the mid-20th century created new conditions for human life, which meant that philosophy, especially ethics, which is our subject, right, had to address the real-world impacts of these challenges. Jonas then explains that this lecture and his subsequent reflections on technology led him to develop a preoccupation with the, quote, impact of technology on the human condition, end quote, which grew, quote, apache with a growing and ever more obtrusive visibility of the phenomenon itself, end quote. In simpler terms, as technology became more pervasive and its effects on society and the environment become more apparent, Jonas saw the need for ethical reflection to catch up with these developments. He realized that the traditional ethical frameworks were insufficient for the challenges posed by technological advancements. Okay. For example, consider how nuclear power, while providing energy, also introduced the threat of nuclear weapons and environmental disasters like Chernobyl, remember? These kinds of dilemmas are what Jonas refers to when he talks about the, quote, obtrusive visibility, end quote, of technology's impact. Jonas goes on to describe how his thoughts on these issues evolved and eventually led to the creation of his book. He explains that over the years, his ideas were expressed in a, quote, lengthening series of articles, end quote, which were written with the intention of forming a comprehensive statement, end quote, that would combine these individual pieces into a systematic whole. This book, okay, this book, which is given the title, The Imperative of Responsibility, this book represents that comprehensive statement. In short, he says that this book is the summary of his previous articles, okay, over a long period of time, over many years. However, Jonas is careful to note that the work, this book, is still, quote, fragmentary, end quote, when compared to the scale of the problems it seeks to address. This humility underscores the vastness of the ethical challenges presented by technology, which cannot be fully resolved by one book or one person. Jonas then transitions to the core aim of the book, and we're now nearing to the end of the preface. His core aim, he says, is moving beyond merely describing the facts and dangers associated with technological progress to offering a, quote, an ethical response to the facts, end quote. This is where Jonas believes the real challenge lies. While many people can agree on the dangers posed by unchecked logical development, such as environmental degradation or the potential misuse of artificial intelligence, finding ethical solutions to these problems is much more difficult. Okay? It's easy, in short, it's easy to complain about the dangers, but it's difficult to create a plan, a strategy on how to ethically respond to these challenges. As Jonas puts it, quote, novel conditions and perils demand novel answers, right? In short, we have new problems and therefore we need new solutions. The ethical frameworks of the past, which were developed for simpler times, need to be adapted or even replaced to address the unprecedented risks that modern technology presents. Walang gadali ta in our discussion of ethical frameworks because we need to go beyond them. Okay? We're now facing a new world and we need to read Jonas. He describes the search for new ethical solutions as a journey into a, quote, veritable terra incognita, end quote. What does that mean? It means an unknown land. Okay? Terra, land, incognita, unknown, right? Veritable terra incognita, an unknown land. Here, Jonas invokes the metaphor of exploration to highlight the uncertainty of the ethical path ahead. Just as early explorers charted unknown territories, ethicists and philosophers must now chart a new moral landscape shaped by technological change. This new terrain, however, is not easy to navigate. Jonas points out that practical reason, which refers to moral reasoning in the Kantian sense, must seek its way by its own uncertain light. In other words, we do not have a clear guide or established rules for how to respond to the ethical dilemmas posed by technology. We must rely on our own reasoning, though it may feel uncertain or inadequate. The remainder of the preface is more technical, detailing the specific essays and articles that were incorporated into the book. These include reflections on responsibility, the ethics of an endangered future, and the relationship between technology, progress, and utopia. Jonas also acknowledges the support he received from institutions like the Rockefeller Foundation, which allowed him the time to write the book, and his intellectual community at the Hastings Center, where his ideas were quote nourished, um, tested, and refined. So that's it for now. Um, that was the preface. In our succeeding video lectures, we'll be going over the 6 different chapters of the book. Okay, so kindly read the book ahead, and I'll be uploading lectures as well. Happy reading.